everybody! Welcome to another episode of Real Kitchens with Justin. I am Justin. This is my real kitchen. I'm getting a boo-boo face from a 5-year-old because I told him not to mess around my camera. What can you do? Today, we are going to be making one of my favorite recipes. It's because you can put it on in the morning, forget about it, and it's done in the evening time when it's dinner time. And that is pot roast. Now, I can say that you don't need a knife to make this recipe, but I would be lying because I did use a knife to make this recipe. I used my old 7-inch chef's knife. I got this knife from the Dollar Tree for $1.07 about 9 years ago. It is still so sharp I could go shave with it. So it's not the knife, it's how you take care of it. That's all I gotta say about that. You're going to use 1 large onion, and as always, I pre-dice these before filming because me and onions do not get along. I like them in my food. Do not like to cut them. I cry and cry like a big baby. I gotta wear goggles, and it still is not even enough. Long story short, you're gonna need to dice some onions. Walmart does have frozen diced onions, and I have used them in there before, and they're perfectly acceptable if you do not want to get a knife out and you just want to rip and pull. That's an option. You're gonna need about a cup of baby carrots. You need about 5 celery sticks. I pre-cut the celery sticks this time. I left one so you can see how easy it is just to use kitchen shears. You do not need to be a master of the blade in order to make a pot roast. You do need to own a pair of scissors. I think everybody has a pair of scissors. That easy. You're gonna need some minced garlic. I use the pre-minced garlic just because it is so easy just to open the thing, put a couple spoonfuls in, done with it. If you're a purist and you want to mince your own garlic, we're gonna be using about 3 to 4 cloves. 3 great big cloves, 4 to 5 little cloves of garlic. I use kosher salt. Use kosher salt and pepper. We'll use 2 packs of Au Jus sauce. Now this, when we get closer to the bowl up, the plate up, I'm going to show you how to make an excellent gravy for your potatoes. Out of the sauce, the Au Jus. You're going to need 1 big bay leaf. Or if you get them from Walmart like I do and they come out about that big, you'll need 2 of them. And water. We're going to need water. So, if you give me a second, we're going to sear up this before we put it in the pot. Then we're going to add our ingredients, throw it on there. So, alright, let's go to the stove. Hey, we're over here at the stove. I've got my meat out of the package. You see there's a nice big fat cap on this. I like to keep the fat on it for a pot roast. It all is going to cook down into the gravy or the sauce. So I'm going to get my kosher salt. I'm going to do a nice dusting on one side. Nice dusting on the other side. Nice dusting of pepper. So every time my stepdaughter Taylor sees me seasoning meat, I always ask her, Taylor, why do we season both sides of the meat? This girl's so smart. I love her to death. She always has the right answer. Ladies and gentlemen, why do we season both sides of the meat? Because we eat both sides of the meat. So, there's that. So this is nice and hot. Never over a medium. Don't ever crank it too high. You just medium heat is all you want. You leave it sit for a minute while you're getting your other ingredients going. It is plenty hot. So I'm going to put that nice fat cap right down on there. And I'm going to sizzle. Sizzle, baby, sizzle. Sizzle, baby, sizzle. Now I'm not trying to cook this. All I'm doing is searing it. Locking those juices. I'm locking those flavors in there. And this is going to give you a better pot roast. I just love that sound. Sorry, I don't mean to have a lot of dead air there, but I just love the sound of meat cooking. Something primal in me. The smell of it. And you can use your hand. Ooh, yeah, see, nice and seared up. That's good stuff right there, ladies and gentlemen. That's a nice cut of muscle right there. So I don't know where you guys are at. I know a lot of you are here in Indiana, but it is so cold outside. You know, I like the winter. I'm from Arizona. I spent 31 years of my 46 years out in that desert. And I didn't know any better when I was out there. I just thought every place was hot and that's how it was. Till I got to Indiana. And you know what they got in Indiana? They got seasons. 4 of them. And it's crazy because it happens like the day before, the day after on the calendar when the season says it's going to change. Guess what? It changes. Sure enough, it got cold during winter time. But what are you going to do? You couldn't pay me to go live out there in that desert now, but that was then, this is now though. Alright, it should be good, nice and sizzled. See how that salt, the salt is just charred in there. It's a nice good sear. I'm gonna let it sit there. I'm gonna keep my stove on because I'm going to be using that burner my pot, so it's better just to keep it on and instead of having to let it burn, heat back up again. Alright, we're going back to the cutting board. Alright, now we are back over here to the countertop. We're going to assemble our roast. So we want it in the pan. So I always like to put the meat on the bottom. Go fat up. Then I'll add my bay leaf. Now you have to remember to take the bay leaf out when you are serving this, or don't serve the bay leaf. It's not that it's not edible. It's just it never gets any softer. You could boil that thing for days and it'd still turn out like a stick. So just remember, don't serve the bay leaf. If you do happen to serve the bay leaf, try to fish it out. That's all I'm trying to say. So then I put the Au Jus sauce. I just coat the meat. I just dump it on the meat. Just dump it on there. Nothing fancy. Dump it on there. I like to do it on the meat. That way, for a split second, I know we're going to cover it with water and all that stuff, but for a split second, all that Au Jus sauce, all the powdered Au Jus sauce has contact with the meat. Then I do my onions. I try to get them around. Now I am going to be adding about 5 red potatoes to this later. I will film that, adding the potatoes to it. I add the potatoes about 30-45 minutes prior to serving the food because I don't want the potatoes to disintegrate inside my roast and make all of my juice all cloudy with potato and all that stuff. Potatoes are real delicate. People don't realize how delicate a potato really is. So I add my carrots, my celery. We get a nice 1, 2 spoonfuls of garlic. And we're gonna fill this to just above the food line. Cold water. Shake it around, make sure everything's stirred. Just like that. You got all your veggies floating, the meat is sunk. Alright, so then we are going to take it back over to the stove and we're going to put it on there. Alright? Alright, we got our roast is just now starting to boil. You see all that froth right there? That is beautiful stuff. That is all that au jus sauce. It is mixing in there. It is starting to percolate. So then, that's about as hot as I want it. So, what I'm going to do is I don't have a lid for this pot. I do have a plate. It's a porcelain plate. You do not want to use a plastic plate as a lid on your pot because it will melt and it will get into your food and you'll be stuck with big old plastic coated roast. Yuck. So I immediately put my plate on there and I will drop my temperature down to the 1 notch. If you've got an electric stove, it'll be 1 notch above the low. It's gonna keep that temperature in there. It's gonna be nice and slow and low cooking. And that is basically gonna be it for the next 7 to 8 hours. I will show you how to make a delicious gravy. I'm gonna show you how to make a roux, show you how to use the sauce, the juice out of this before we put the potatoes in there. I'm gonna pull the juice out, the stock is what it is called. I call it juice just because I've turned into a hillbilly. And anyway, pull the stock out, put it in a measuring cup. We're gonna set it aside. I'm gonna show you how to make a roux. I'm gonna show you how to turn everything in this into a delicious meal that you can make. Now I know some of you have asked, you're thinking to yourself, Justin, why didn't you just put that whole thing in a crock pot, a slow cooker, and be done with it? I'm going to tell you, it's one thing. Not everybody has a crock pot. I make these videos for people who are very, they're kitchen remedial. They're afraid of the kitchen. I want them to be able to come into the kitchen with what they have in the kitchen and be able to prepare themselves a meal. There is a lot of single moms out there who were raised by single moms that didn't take the time to, or not just single moms, but single parents that were raised by single parents that they didn't take the time to teach them how to prepare a meal. or they didn't have the time because they were always at work. They didn't come home till late, and a lot of things were processed, packaged, processed. That was dinner. I want them to have a catalog of meals that they can make, basic, simple things that they can feed themselves, they can feed their families. Thinking about my kids. I'm thinking about your kids. So they got a catalog of videos that they can access when they're out of our houses on their own. They got a guy who knows how to cook, who's thinking about them, and they can cook some decent stuff for themselves, their friends, their loved ones. If you guys like what I'm doing, you want to support me, you can like this video, subscribe to my channel, or you can even think about donating a little money. All proceeds will go to this channel and helping me to get the message out, helping me get some better equipment, maybe upgrade my facilities here, whatever you guys want to do. Even if you just want to watch the videos, I don't care. Alright, welcome back. And now, it's about 7.5 hours later. I have added my potatoes to my roast. Pulled out 2 cups of the broth. And we are going to make a roux because we're going to make gravy for these potatoes when they come out all nice and moist and cooked, all full of meat flavor. Want to have a gravy to go on top of the potatoes, and also want to have a gravy for the meat. So I'm going to teach you guys how to make a simple brown gravy using bacon fat, or bacon grease, and flour. We're going to start making a roux. And a roux is equal parts fat and flour. And you do this because it is literally the only way to add flour to a liquid without it clumping. If you've ever tried to add flour to water or milk or any type of thing, you notice it clumps up. It won't release the flour into the liquid. So you use the fat and it dissipates into the liquid and it thickens the liquid. I use the bacon grease because it adds a body of flavor to what it is I'm cooking. You can use any fat medium you want. Vegetable oil, butter, clarified butter. I prefer bacon drippings. Alright, so let's get started. Alright, so we're going to use a small saucepan. As you can see, it's nice and hot. I got it on medium heat. I've got my bacon drippings I've saved. I'm going to take and get about that much on the spoon. And drop it down in there. Turn the fan on. Now, as this starts to melt, liquefy, you will know when it's done, it's ready to add the flour, because it'll start to sizzle like you're putting a piece of bacon in there. It should be completely liquid in there before you add the flour. Alright. Now I use my spoon when I do this so I can control what's going on in here. The flour sizzles in there. Get all the clumps out of it. This is a roux, ladies and gentlemen. This would be called a blonde roux, and it is the lightest roux that there is. There's blonde, noisette, which is French for nutty, and it kind of takes on a nutty flavor. The longer you cook it, it goes through a different flavor profile. And then you got a brown roux. The blonde roux has the most thickening abilities of any of the roux. Then the noisette, it has the second, and then the brown, of course, but the brown has the most flavor. We're not worried about the flavors because we got 2 cups of Au Jus that has had roast cooked in it, so we're not worried about holding on to too much flavor. And we're just making a small batch. If I was making a great big old batch of a sauce, then I would cook it down a little bit more. You want to make sure it's all hot, there's no lumps, and then you're going to slowly, hear that sound? You're going to slowly add liquid in there, tempering the sauce, and it's going to boil real quick, and you're going to add the rest of it. You're going to stir constantly to make sure all the flour dissipates into the liquid. And it's easier, the lower the liquid volume, the easier it is to see the lumps. Alright? You don't want lumps in your gravy. This isn't Grandma's kitchen. There's no lumps in our gravy. Alright. So, we're going to add the rest of the liquid. Here we go. This goes in the sink. You see, that's quite a bit of gravy we're going to have. And this is homemade gravy. You don't just have to use this for roast. You can do it for anything. You don't even have to use beef stock. You can use chicken stock and make a chicken gravy. You can use turkey drippings and make a turkey gravy. This is how every gravy, every sauce is made ever. Except for tomato and the bechamel, the milk sauce, the cheese sauce. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Now I got the salt out right there, just in case, but we shouldn't need it because the salt in the Au Jus packets and the salt on the beef that we... Alright, we have our gravy. It is beautiful, tastes great. I ended up adding just a pinch of salt, a little bit of garlic powder, and a pinch of onion powder to it, just to bring all the flavors of the meat out of the sauce. Once you get your roast out of the pan, you want to put it on cutting board. You want to let it rest for about 5 minutes. Excuse me. You want to do that with any meat as soon as you bring it off the heat. You want to let it rest for about 5-10 minutes, so that way everything congeals. All the juices, all that stuff stay in the meat. And believe it or not, that almost 2.5 pound roast turned into that. Looks like one person can eat the whole thing in one sitting. I probably could, given a good day. Alright, so get your good old meat fork. You're going to make a nice slice. Right down. Oh, that looks so good. Yeah. Good enough to slap your mama. Anyway, you know what they say in the shows? 5 people in our house, everybody gets a slice. Now, believe it or not, that will separate on the plate, and it will take up about half the plate per slice. Beautiful. Look at that. Look at that roast right there. And it's so tender. I'm not having to put any pressure on this knife. I just like these nice uniform slices so I can plate them up a lot easier. Alright, and then we have all of our carrots, our potatoes. Everything is nice and tender. I'm going to make it like a mash and put the gravy over it, and I will get back to you and show you what the plate up looks like. And there we go. There is a nice hot meal of pot roast, potatoes, carrots, celery, It is got our homemade gravy on it. It's plenty of it. Home cooked meal anybody could make. Alright. Hey guys, don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe. And with that, I'm gonna say peace. Ow.